What's up guys, Chris here again. Today we're going to be continuing with our disassembly and reassembly series of the Glock 19, and today we are going to be focusing on disassembling the frame. So drop the magazine, no gas, no BBs, put that to the side, rack the slide back, pull down on the takedown lever, both sides, push the slide forward, and it comes off. We'll put that to the side as well. So what you're left with is your frame and internals. At this point, we'll go ahead and dry fire. So the hammer is in a forward position. And in the frame, we have four main attachment points. We have a hammer assembly pin, hammer assembly screw, trigger pin, and a inner frame screw. So what I like to do is I remove the screws first. Alright, so I've removed the two screws. I'll put those in my tray. And next up we're going to be taking out the hammer housing pin. And normally pins go from left side to right side when removing them. So for this I like to use a roll of tape just to make it a little bit easier. Put your pistol in place. Grab a medium-sized punch. You'll be able to figure out what works and what not. Small hammer, and just a couple of light taps and the pin should fall straight out. You can see here that the pin has knurlings on one end, and that's on the right side of the pin. Put that in my tray, and at this point you'll be able to lift out the hammer assembly by grabbing hold of the frame edges here on either side and pull straight up. Now, before you go ahead and do that, you need to be aware of that there's a spring here under the valve reset knocker that has a tendency to come out. So put your thumb over there when taking it out. Pull the trigger to get a little bit of more room. You'll see that the trigger bar is connected to the hammer housing like so. Simply rotate it and take it out, and you now have your hammer assembly removed. So we're going to remove the valve reset knocker, pushing it down and just sliding it out. Take care not to lose the spring. Oh, I guess there's no... Okay, I'll just capture it with a punch. Put that in my tray along with the valve reset knocker, and we'll be disassembling this further, but for now put that to the side. Next up, what we're going to do is remove the slide lock lever or disassembly lever, and that is kept in place with this spring that's in here. So we need to depress that spring downwards, tilt the frame to the side, and the disassembly lever should be coming out. You can sort of help it on the way a little bit, and there we go. One thing to note with this part, it has a specific orientation that it needs to go in. You can see it's slanted toward that direction. We'll take a closer look at that when we're putting it back together. So the only thing left now keeping this in place is the trigger pin. And be aware that this pinhole above the trigger pin is a fake pinhole. So there's nothing in there. So don't try to punch that out. So again, we'll get our roll of tape. And before you go ahead and do this, be aware that the slide catch and the slide catch spring are going to come out when you take this pin out. Get my punch, hammer. This pin can be a little bit, I'm not going to say like difficult, but it could take a little bit of force the first time you take it out. And again, you can see it has the knurling on the right hand side. Put that in my tray, and my slide catch and spring actually stayed in place, so we'll go ahead and lift those out. And it will look like this when you take it out. Put that in the tray. And at this point, you should be able to simply lift the inner frame assembly out of the frame. And the serial number and safety plate comes out along with the trigger bar, and trigger bar spring. Remove the trigger bar spring, put it in your tray, and put the serial number plate to the side. And what we can go ahead and do here is, just for sake of completeness, is take the trigger apart from the trigger bar as well. So you'll see there's 2 pins. Again, they go from left side to right side. Take a small punch. These are actually very loosely fit in here, so no hammer required. And they simply drop out. Trigger bar comes loose, and the trigger safety comes out as well. So put those to the side along with the pins. What's left in the inner frame assembly is the slide lock spring, and that's kept in place with a pin right here. That is non-specific in direction, so you just push that out, and the pin and the spring pin and the spring come out like so. Put those in the tray. Inner frame completely disassembled. Put that to the side. And what we're left with in the actual frame itself is the magazine release button and its spring. So if you can tell, right here is the spring arm that's hooked into the magazine release. So what we need to do is push this spring to the right hand side forwards in the frame, and at the same time wiggle the magazine release around the spring to get it to come out this side. So what I like to do is take my thumb, go in there, push it to the side and forward, and this is usually a little bit tricky because it's just such a tight space to be working in. Okay, so after a little bit of wiggling around, I was able to get the magazine release free of the spring, and the spring is still in there. Get a pair of pliers, grab a hold of the spring, and pull it straight out. It's going to come out like this. So put that in my tray, and that is a completely stripped frame for the Glock 19. Put that to the side, and what we're left with is the most difficult part of this whole thing, and that is the hammer assembly. And in here we have the hammer wheel, the hammer, the valve knocker, and the sear right here. So you'll see there are 2 pins, one at the top, one at the bottom. The top one is for the hammer and valve knocker, and the bottom is for the sear. So we're going to remove the sear and the sear spring. No, let's go ahead and remove the hammer first. So simply push the hammer pin out, and the valve knocker, hammer, and hammer wheel are going to come out. So this is what the hammer assembly with the spring install looks like. So take the spring off, put that in our tray. You can also remove the hammer wheel at this point, like that. And here's the valve knocker. Put put that in our tray along with the pin. And what's left in here is the sear and the sear spring. Pop that pin out. And the sear and the spring come out. So what you're left with is just an empty hammer chassis. And in the next video, we're going to be talking about how to reassemble the Glock 19 lower frame. And I'll see you guys in that video.